Hey, we're motorizing an Iron Man helmet today. That's pretty cool, right? Let's figure out how to actually do this. It's not padded at all, sorry. That's better. Hello everyone, my name is Kira Creates. Today we are going to be learning how to motorize your very own Iron Man helmet. If you haven't been watching the channel, this is part of an ongoing series where I'm building the entire Mark 40 suit from Iron Man Free. I'm too scared to say the actual name of the suit because YouTube is YouTube. And today we're going to be learning how you can do this with your Iron Man helmet. It's pretty cool, right? Let's actually get this off. This thing's, oh god, it's not padded. Now, whether or not you're making just the helmet or you're making the entire suit, this video should be helpful for you if you just want like something cool to put in like a display case, kind of like one of these IKEA details with weeb figures in it with characters I desperately want to cosplay, but I'm broke. But yeah, the resources for building Iron Man stuff and just cosplay in general has just been increasing and increasing so quickly over the past few years that even idiots like me can figure out how to do this. In this video, we're going to be going over the basics of the electronics with the control board from Crashworks, doing motor mounts, where to get this stuff and the files and all that fun stuff and all the different components to make your very own motorized eyes lighting up Iron Man helmet. Hopefully you guys find this video informative and help you out in your project. And if you want to leave a comment down below of what Iron Man helmet you're interested in making or what you're currently making, that would be fantastic. I love hearing like what you guys are also working on, so that way we could talk about it, because like we're all nerds here. And thank you to the sponsor of this build series, Polymaker and Dio3D, for making this entire build series possible. I will have links down below for all the files and stuff that I'm using, such as Polymaker's filament, the files for the suit, and as well as everything else that I use in this video, so that way you know what to put together and where to get all the stuff. So without further ado, let's get started. Yeet. Okay, I need to figure that out. Alrighty everybody, we're pretty much ready to get our files. I'm just going to be going over this extremely quickly because I go over this more in depth in my file modification and slicing video. So if you want to learn about these sites more in depth, check out that video. But we're going to be starting off with Dio3D. If you want to buy something like this incredibly beautiful Deadpool and Wolverine popcorn bucket, make sure to use code KK2050 at checkout for 20 to 50% off your entire order depending on the promotion. So I'm going to go check out the armor file. So Dio3D offers a plethora of Iron Man stuff, including all of these helmets. So I'm going to search up Shoddy here just to make things go slightly quicker. And here we have the armor. So as you see on the website, it only showed the armor itself. Currently at the making of this video, there's no way to purchase a shotgun helmet by itself from Dio3D. I'm gonna email them asking if that's something they're willing to do, and I'll put captions on whatever they do down below the video, as well as ask them to make a motorized version of the helmet, because their helmet looks great, but it cannot be motorized. So that cowl right there, which is where your motors are gonna sit in the helmet, that's actually part of the faceplate in the file. Now you may be able to manipulate the files in Blender or something to get that cowl onto the helmet itself, but that is a ton of work and I don't even know if it's possible to do yourself. So as of right now, this is not really doable. So I'm gonna be showing you a different website where I bought my helmet file. So here we have a website called Wireframe. It's an awesome website. It's got tons of awesome stuff like this Ben 10 Alien Force Omnitrix, which I really actually want to make. Let me know if you want a video on that. But we're going to be searching for Shoddy again. So Wireframe actually offers like 3 different versions of the Shoddy helmet. Now that's because Wireframe hosts a bunch of different modelers and they sell their stuff. This is their marketplace. So these are all by different modelers. All of these helmets are great and perfectly usable and they look fantastic. So this first one we're looking at is by Walsh 3D. He modeled my Mark 42 helmet and you can see this helmet's pretty awesome, comes in multiple different pieces, and it comes with a motorization kit. Now a neat feature with this is that it actually has the jaw motorizable. So when the faceplate opens, the jaw will also open up. Now because of that, it's going to take a third servo because when you're motorizing an Iron Man helmet, you use 2 servos in the forehead. So if it has a special feature like that in the chin, you could totally do that, but it requires a bunch of extra work, possibly some coding stuff. So I'm not even going to play with this idea because I don't want to do anything extra, to be honest with you. But it's really, really cool. I might play with that in the future because, again, it's really cool. But the final one we're looking at, and the one that I went with, is this file by Levy 3D. Now, I specifically went with this file because it gives you options of what you want to do with that beak or jaw or whatever you want to call it. I call it a beak. So Levy gives you two options of how you want to mount the jaw. You can either mount it to the actual helmet itself, or you can mount it to the faceplate if you so choose. Now that's a pretty cool feature, and with it being mounted on the faceplate, that is accurate to how the Hot Toys did it, but I'm not 100% sure if that's how it's supposed to be done in the film because, well, you never see Tony's faceplate actually open up when he's using the armor. But if you want to have it on the jaw or if you want to have it on the faceplate, the option is there, so I went with this just for that simplicity and just giving me that option if I want to do that. And that's a really great thing about most modern Iron Man helmet files, that a lot of them that are coming out now and that have been coming out for a while, they already have a motorization kit included into the helmet. Let's pretty much just assemble the thing and it's ready to go. It's fantastic. So with all that being said, that's pretty much all we need to know about the file that we're using and getting. So let's move on to the next step. All right, now that we know where to get our helmet file, well, here it is. Just make it magically appear. Now, I'm only going to talk about this briefly because, again, I already made a whole video about like slicing and modifying files. So all the information about printing will be there because, well, I used the helmet as an example. Fun fact, I haven't even filmed it yet, and this is like a couple days before this goes up because I don't want to be bullied for using Ultimaker Kira still in 2024. So yeah, I might not even make that video. We'll see though. So to keep things frank, you saw that on the website. This helmet file was in a ton of different pieces with the sides and then like the jaw and then like some of the stuff here, like all around this was all many pieces. So I threw them all into Blender and I combined them together so that way I could print the entire dome and jaw piece as one section, and it turned out extremely well. So helmet is only in a few basic pieces. It's the main faceplate, the jaw is kind of its separate piece, but I have it hot glued on right now, and the dome and jaw are one piece. So that's 3 main pieces, and I'm not going to count the motorization parts right now. So after you have all these guys printed, you're pretty much ready to start doing your electronics. But in order to do electronics, you need some stuff. So the heart and soul of your Iron Man helmet, or honestly your entire suit, is this little board right here called the Crashworks board. And to talk about the Crashworks board and how the electronics are going to work, we're going to jump the future Kira. Alright, hopefully I can give a competent explanation on this time. So this is what is known as a Crashworks board. You can get one of these guys off of Crashworks' eBay page. I'll have that link down below, of course. So basically all this guy is a breakout board for this big board here, like right in the middle. This bottom part is designed by Crashworks and it basically just has a bunch of plugs on it that they attach to this board that they buy, and then they put code on this and you can plug these guys in and it basically makes an Iron Man helmet nice and plug and play. Now this may look a little different depending on what's available at the time of this video going up because they're always working on improving their boards, making sure that these main boards that they use are more reliable, adding or changing plugs, changing code, yada yada yada, a whole bunch of things. So this model in particular has 3 servo ports here. So these 2 servo ports are for your main servos, which those guys are what are used to open and close your faceplate. Now in this new and improved version, they added a 3rd servo port. So what this guy is for usually is if the chin is motorized, such as the shotgun helmet by Walsh. Now this is also mainly used for Walsh's Mark 85 design because that has a motorized chin, but this board has that option to do that. So basically I can do the upgrade if I really want to. We'll see what future me says. This port right here is for your LED eyes, and this guy is for the switch, which will activate your servos and like change your eye settings, whatever. And then this port here is known as an expansion port. Now I believe one of the main functions is like expand this just in case like you want to like add a soundboard to this. You can plug that into here. But for my suit, there's a little bit of an Easter egg in here, which we'll talk about later. But let's just say it's gonna be bright like a diamond, shine like a diamond. And then it has one more port here for your power. Now you can see that this board here does have a power port for USB-C, but that's not actually a power port. That's a upload your code. So if you modify code on here, which I don't know how to do, that's why there's not going to be a coding section in this video, sorry, this is what that's used for. Don't use this for power or you may fry this entire board. So not a good idea. But yeah, that's all the basic ports. And before I forget, this is very important, all these Crashworks boards includes these papers that like show like what everything does on here in depth. This is for like an older model of the Alicia board. I can't find the one for this one right now, but it's basically a similar concept. It shows like what all the plugs are for. It has everything labeled. It has a big warning here, don't use that for power and use that for programming only. And it'll have some other warnings and some instructions in here, so make sure you read over all of this before you start playing with it. So that way you better understand like what you're playing with here. It even has like little warnings here about your USB power bank, which I am using a 5 volt 2.1 amp power bank, because if you use a 12 volt, you'll probably fry the entire board. But that's basically the rundown on these guys. It's pretty simple to understand basically how to like put this thing all together and how this operates. And it's just really great that you can get these and not have to do any coding yourself. It's pretty nice. But if you're not satisfied with the coding, they have instructions on how to like change that and stuff like that. But if you want to alter the coding, you can totally do that to make the helmet open and close faster or slower, change Neopixel colors, add Neopixels. You could do like a whole bunch of things. So I hope this was a satisfactory crash course on how this guy works. Oh yeah, and also before I get to mention, these guys also come with these pack of wires. So that way you could literally just strip down the wires from like the components, servo wires, the LEDI wires, stuff like that, where we just solder these together and then there you go. They're plug and play. But haha, fun fact, you don't even need to pull apart your servo wires because these guys have plugs for your servo wires. Exhibit A, this will just plug in directly to the servo. If you have these mounted in the helmet like I'm doing, you don't need to do any type of cutting for your servos. So that'll save you confusion of like accidentally like putting the power or the signal wiring in the wrong place. So that way you don't actually really screw up your wiring and screw up your servos. Just don't plug these in backwards. Make sure the colors line up, orange with orange, brown with brown, that kind of stuff. And then you got a wire here. The blue one is for your switch. This one with red and black is your power lead. And then this free plug red and black one is for your LEDIs. So this is pretty dang sweet. And there is one wire in this bundle here that was included in my kit that you can ask Crashworks for. If you message them on eBay or Discord or whatever, you can ask them for a specific wire for Neopixels, which that Neopixel wire looks just like a servo wire. My fingers are in the way, but yeah, you can see it's the same color wires, but the wires are actually changed here, so it's not like the same color coding as say a servo wire. So you want to ask for this specifically. Make sure you don't like mix this up with your servo wires, because I think the reds are actually no, I think all three of the colors are changed around, but yeah, you get the point. Which I forgot to explain, so you guys are probably very confused. Neopixels are super high-end LEDs, which are super bright. They're programmable, so you're able to change the colors of them with some coding changes and stuff like that, which Crashworks boards should have preloaded on it, which of course you can always alter by plugging in the board to your PC or laptop and change the code on there to change whatever color, have like different effects, stuff like that. Neopixels are really cool. And how could I forget this little beauty thingy over here? Oh god, I dropped it. The Penelope board, you know, Penelope. Yeah, I can spell. So what this guy does is very simple. So if you have a USB battery pack that you have hooked up to your Crashworks board, chances are that it might have an auto shut off feature where it kind of shuts itself off and goes to sleep if it doesn't detect enough current being drawn from the pack. So soon after plugging in your battery pack to the Crashworks board, it may just turn off and all your electronics will shut off because it's not drawing enough power from the pack. Well, this guy fixes that. So this end here plugs into your USB pack, and then this end here plugs into power to your Alicia board from Crashworks. So it keeps that pack from shutting off. Now, not all USB battery packs have this auto shut off feature. You could probably search it on Amazon, but from what I've seen, they're usually fairly pricey compared to standard USB packs. So that way you can choose which ones last longer, like what lasts decent enough for your use case. So like a small pack like this, which is something Frank We Built recommends in his videos, this lasts about like 5 or 6 hours or more on one charge just powering the helmet. But if you want to power something with Neopixels, which these Neopixel lights, they take a lot more power. Or something as big and chunky as this guy, was basically taking up the entire screen. Yeah, there's some hot glue there because I was going to use this on the Mark 42, but I couldn't fit this anywhere in the back. But I can fit this guy in shotgun, which I'm going to be using this big old battery pack. Which, like I said, I'll have the stuff linked down below so that way you can choose. But both of these guys have the auto shut-off feature where if you don't use a Penelope board and you do your own USB wiring to the Alicia board, it's not going to stay powered on, but this guy solves that problem for you. So yeah, thank goodness I didn't just completely forget to mention this at all, because this guy's really important. You can order this guy when you order your Alicia board on Crashworks. It's an option if you buy the board, which says whatever name of the board plus Penelope or whatever. You'll figure it out. By the way, I forgot to mention this end is USB micro B. I think it's just called micro B. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's one of these little weird ends. So just make sure when you get a power cord for this, you get the correct end. It's micro B to USB, basically. Yeah, that's all there is to that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much the rundown on these Alicia boards. Hopefully I explained everything fairly competently. We'll see what editing Kira thinks, because it's probably the 5th time I've tried to do this. So the next step here is that I'm going to be teaching you guys how to solder, so that way you know how to put all this wiring together, because it's actually pretty simple once you get the hang of it. So let's move to that. I think I filmed past me doing all that fun stuff. Okay, let's go. And what this version of me forgot to tell you is that you kind of need to know what components we're working with. So now I have to fix my mistakes again. So first up, we got our MG90 servos. These are what are going to be used to open and close our faceplate. They come with these plastic arms to put on the gear, which are also known as horns. And they have these tiny screws, one for securing the horns or whatever arms you place on the servo, and then 2 screws for mounting the servos. Then we have our beautiful LED eyes, and they have this diffusion material on them which covers up the interior of the eyes. These guys out of the box are wired up to a battery pack, which is meant to hold 2 AAA batteries. These guys light up in blue, but these guys can come in a variety of colors such as blue, white, red, you name it. And next up here is the elusive Neopixels I've been talking about. This one in particular is called a matrix, which is an 8x8 array of individual LEDs. So there's 64 in total here, and it's going to look super bright and nice for the arc reactor. Next, we have this little limiter switch, which is going to be used for operation of the helmet. Now for the tools and materials, we have my handy dandy soldering iron and some solder. This is how we're going to be connecting the wires together for a nice durable solution. And to professionally cover up and protect our soldering joints, I'm using this heat shrink. And in order to heat the heat shrink so that way it properly protects our joints, I'm using a basic lighter you can find at any grocery store or convenience store. This one I got at Ace because it was there. And here's some electrical tape in case I want to commit crime. And here we have my wire strippers. Well, strip wires and do some cutting with the wires, as well as cut my solder. Alrighty, dummies and dumbos. The first thing that we're going to be working on here is getting the eyes wired up. This, for the normal board operations for the helmet, is like the only thing we really need to cut up and solder, because Crashworks actually includes these wires that connect directly to the servo, so that way you don't even need to cut like any wires or do any soldering. These are literally plug and play. The only thing is the eyes. So each of these eyes has a power and a ground wire coming from it, and then they join in the middle here with this and then combine into one power and one ground. So this is where we're going to be cutting it, because that's going to go into one plug on the board. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my scissors and just snip those off, and boom, there we go. Now, if you're doing a helmet without motorization, you just want some LED eyes on here, you honestly don't even need to do anything. Just like glue these guys in and then just put batteries in it, boom, it's perfect. But for stuff like this, you need to separate this guy. And you could go ahead and save this battery pack for like another project or something like that, so that way you have like a power source instead of like having to get a whole nother one. And for the rest of the steps here, I'm gonna be moving over to a different camera angle, so let's get into that. And now our next step, we're just gonna be stripping the wires here. So what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be applying some pressure with the cutting edge here, and just applying some pressure here on the casing, and then I'm just basically gonna pull it until that goes, just like that. And same thing for the red wire. Super easy. Now we got all these little straggly, hairy guys just floating around in here. So let's just twist these guys and make sure everything's all nice and straight. So that way you don't get any stragglers and everything's a lot easier to twist later. That should be good enough for our purposes. So that's done. And now let's take care of the other wire. All right, now that all of our wires are stripped, we can just twist these guys together and get ready for soldering. So we're just gonna take our wires, cross them like a little bit of an X right here. And then we're just gonna twist these guys together. Just like that. Now, it doesn't need to be perfect as long as it's just enough we're just kind of holding each other in place because we're going to be soldering it together. It's not going to go anywhere after. But ho, you think I forgot a step? Well, you're right, I did. Before you even put these together, you want to make sure your shrink wrap is on there, or else when they're soldered on, well, you're going to have to undo the whole process to get it back on, and it's a nightmare. So get slid on now, make sure you don't forget to do that. And cool. Now that our wires are all wrapped up and ready to go, we're going to be moving camera angles again. All right, so I just picked up a couple things at Ace Hardware, which when I was getting the shrink wrap I did. One of these things was this helping hands. This is what it's called at least. And what this is going to do, this is going to hold our wires together so that way when I'm soldering, it's all held up in place and everything just goes so much easier. I wish I bought this when I was working on the Mark 42 because soldering, because I wasn't able to get it held up or anything or keep things in place, it was a nightmare. This one cost me about 20 bucks. I don't know if it'll cost you any more or less on Amazon or like anywhere else. I'm sure it will. So what we're going to be doing is just taking our wire, and then we're just going to take these clamps, open it up on one side here, get it clamped on this side here, there we go, and then get it clamped on the other side like so. There we go. And now it's held in place. This also has this really neat magnifying glass too, so if you're working on small things like Arduinos and PCBs and stuff like that, this is also perfect for that. So that way you have perfect vision of where you're soldering in those tiny little spaces. That way you don't accidentally over solder and short something or whatever. So now that we have everything set up, I already have my soldering iron preheated, and I already misplaced my scissors for like the 20th time already. So I have these snipping tools on hand so I can just cut the solder off just like that. So, boop, there we go. And now we're pretty much ready to go. Alrighty, so what I like to do is I like to touch the solder with the tip of the soldering iron. And then just like press it down onto the wire and then spread it like so. And then boom. Now let's get that little pointy part there, just nice and flattened, because this likes to do that sometimes. And since I have a little bit of a sticky point here, let's just cut that because this is completely unnecessary. There we go. And you can see it is not budging at all. It is ready to go. Alrighty, now that we have the eye soldered, it's time to do the shrink wrap to protect the soldering areas so that way nothing shorts. So it's gonna be super simple. We're just gonna slide our shrink wrap right over the area, just like so. And then very safely with nothing flammable around, we're gonna be turning on our lighter. And then we are just going to gently put it over there and then let the heat do the work. And there we go. Looks like it's setting now and it's pretty much shrinked up. So now that should be protected. And you can see that is not going anywhere. So I'm just going to do that on the other side quick, and then we're going to be going ahead and testing all this out. And here we are. So connections here are really straightforward. And if you need any help, Crashworks does include a guide showing like where all the connectors are, some instructions and what everything does with every single board they ship out. So make sure to read up on everything. So let's go ahead and plug our servos into here. For right now, it doesn't matter too much where these go. We're just testing, make sure everything works. But when you're actually hooking up the helmet, you want to make sure these are hooked up properly so that way the faceplate opens up the way it should. For clarification, when I say properly, I mean flipped, because if you flip the servo plugs, the servos will go in opposite directions and it won't work properly in the helmet. So don't swap the plugs. So the eye connector is right here. So we're just going to plug it in here. Next up is our switch wire, which I don't have the switch on yet because I don't really need to for the bench test. I just need to make sure these two ends touch each other. And in my incompetence, I also forgot to mention I'm using what is known as a limiter switch for this, which all you need to know is that when you connect it and solder it to your wires, make sure you do normally open and close. Any other combination will not work. Okay, I think that's about all I need to tell you. Sorry. And lastly, we're going to connect the power wire here, which this guy connects into this red port here, and then the white end is going to go into the Penelope board right over here. And now that we have all that set up, we're going to be taking this last cable here, which is the USB micro B cable, and plug it into Penelope board right here. And the final connection, which is going to be the Hail Mary of this whole thing, the USB battery pack. So once I get this guy plugged in, this should all start turning on and the LED eye should light up. The servo should move. Let's get that in camera here, it right there. And that will indicate that everything works. So, moment of truth. Beautiful. So let's find out if the servos actually move and the eyes shut off like they should when you hit the switch, which indicates the helmet opening. So let's hit the 2 leads here. And they did exactly that. And let's hit it again to close it. Just like that. So the basic helmet functionality is all bench tested and ready to go. So all that's left to do is wire up the switch itself, and then you basically just install this in the helmet. So let's move on to wiring our Neopixel. Alrighty, so quick thing. So 50 years ago when I made the original segment for this, it just turned into another incoherent ramble and rant about stuff because I do that to myself a lot. So here we go again. So at this point in time, I added like 2 elastic pieces to like attach this to the chest, but that's unimportant right now. One of them came off when I got this out of the chest. But anyway, so yeah, this is the light, and looking at the back here is the important part. So originally this guy had a couple other wires coming out of it, which still I think does. I don't quite remember how the wiring went on this. I have footage of this thing though, I think. So in order to make this work with that 3-prong connector on the Crashworks board, there are only 3 wires you have to solder together into a plug like this. So Crashworks provided this little connector here with these short little wires in the box. And so the 3 wires needed to make this work is power, ground, and this signal wire, which you can't really see the name of it. You can see the name of the rest of this stuff, but this one is called a DIN. So basically all you need to know is that this is the data that is sent to the Neopixel to basically tell it what to do, like what color to light up, to do any type of effect, that kind of stuff. So basically this wire is like the nerve. So those are the only 3 wires you need to really solder up. So this board actually has like some of those wires already pre-installed in here. I was a dummy and disconnected this wire, and it made my life a living heck trying to solder it onto like the little copper pad there that's supposed to go on. So that was a living nightmare. That's why the ground and the 5-volt is over here instead of over here, because I also ripped those out, which I kind of destroyed the copper padding here and I couldn't get the solder on. So yeah, don't make it harder on yourself like I did. But luckily they had 2 other wires up here for that. So it's not the end of the world if you accidentally destroy that 5-volt power and that ground, because there's another 5-volt power and ground already over here. So you get a second shot on them. But Crashworks made it so easy to make a Neopixel system in your suit to where you only just need to know like, okay, I just need to connect these wires to this wire, and that's the end of it. But yeah, that's basically how this guy works, and I'll just go back to the password to just show this all lit up because I don't feel like doing all that right now. All right, so let's turn this guy on and I'll show you the boot process. So it takes a minute for anything to turn on, and then little LEDs come up on that side. There goes the servos, and it's lit up. It is bright as heck. Like, Jesus. Why did I directly look at that? But yeah, this is like the power of the sun in the palm of my hand right here, guys. You ready to say some ghost stories? So basically what Crashworks has done here is that after you basically just solder 3 wires together, Neopixels are plug and play on. And a really neat feature that Crashworks coded into the board is that if you triple click the button 3 times, it changes color. So right now it's like a pinkish type color. And then let me hit it again and it turns off. And then you hit it again and then it turns back to blue. And now it's red. So I'm pretty sure how it's supposed to be, it's red. There's some tinkering that needs to be done with the code, I think, to make it good 100% of the time. But it's supposed to go from blue to red and then off, and then cycle through that again as you hit it 3 times. So if you click it 2 times, that turns off the LED eyes, and then you hit it twice again, and it progressively gets brighter. So that controls the dimness and if the eyes are on and off. So that's how this is supposed to work. Now let me turn this guy off because there's one more thing I want to go over with this Neopixel. So while I've been playing with this system, one problem the Neopixels bring up, it drains battery. So because of how intense the light can be from these and how much heat it produces and everything like that, you may want to consider upgrading your battery pack. Now this is so this is the battery pack that I'm using for the Mark 42, which only powers the helmet. So the arc reactor and the repulsors, they're on their own separate power supply. This just powers the helmet in it. And this will go for forever. Now with Neopixels in it, now because it's just one, I'm sure that one of these may last fine at a con for like a few hours. But if I'm running like at least 3, if not more, I may be concerned about my battery life and may want to upgrade to something a little bit beefier. Now I think I'll stick with this guy in the pack because I'm using this honestly as my daily driver for like my phone and stuff. But honestly, I'm not against having to use this for the suit if that's going to become an issue when it comes to battery life. Yeah, that is the power pack I'm using, because as you guys saw, it was doing some weird stuff to the lights, and also kind of like just shut off the board sometimes. So yeah, we are definitely using the bigger one. Make sure you do that on your build if you do Neopixels, guaranteed. Use a bigger one. So that's pretty much it for all the complex and detailed stuff about like what's going on here. Now I feel like I talked way more about this stuff than I should have, but there's just a lot to go over here. And I just want to make sure you guys understand what we're working with here as much as possible, just to make this process so much better for you guys, so that way you have a better understanding of everything going on. And with all that being said, I think it's time I finally show you guys how to install everything in the helmet itself. So what you're about to witness does have correct information in it, but it ended up going south, which you'll see in a minute. I used the wrong motorization arms because I was screwing around, so the ones you see are not the ones included with the helmet. I ended up changing that later, but we'll let the future explain what happened here. But before the lesson that's going to be learned in this segment, let's learn the lesson of make sure to use the parts that come included with your helmet motorization rather than jerry-rigging another thing to work, even though it doesn't work and the other thing would have worked. So what we're going to be doing is using some hot glue to temporarily attach this to the widow's peak down in here. Now I really like how Kevy designed his cage, because this line will perfectly match with the line in the cowl, so that way this is perfectly centered. So we're just going to take our Gorilla Hot Glue. I have it on low setting so that way it doesn't stick very well, so I can easily pull this out if I need to. And just dab some in the middle here. I just like to do a generous amount right there, and then just slap her in. Like, yeah. So that looks about good to me there. Put it right in the middle of the line. And then that is placed in there. So now that the glue is all cooled and dried, we're going to keep the faceplate open, because what we're going to do is plug in the power source, and I'm going to see where the servo arms rest at their resting position. So that way I can adjust these, so that way the mount can be attached to the faceplate and the servo arms are all aligned and everything should be in alignment. So let's plug in our battery pack here. Now it's in the resting position. What we're going to do is flip the helmet around and close the faceplate and see where that sits. So it looks like I got this pretty solid, like pretty much on the first time. This probably won't happen. This did not happen to me on the Mark 42. I had the position in a crap ton. But in order to adjust the position of the servo arms, you just want to be very careful. Open up the faceplate and then basically tighten and untighten your screws as you need to. And then just adjust the servo arms while they're not attached to the gears, so that way the gears stay in their rested position, but you can adjust the arms to be in the rested position up against the faceplate here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to carefully move this without moving the servo gears, and then just add a healthy amount of hot glue in here, so that way this can be nice and attached temporarily, so that way I can just make sure all of this works, and just let that dry. Alright, now that that's all good and dry, let's test this out by hitting our switch wires together here and see if this opens properly. I guess not. And that's when they found out that sometimes things don't work when you mess with making things smaller, because I made the helmet smaller, but I didn't modify the motor system. So yeah, let's see how I figured that out and my explanation on that. Alright, so I actually just swapped out the servo arms earlier because I was dealing with that issue. So turns out it wouldn't open because the arms I put in were too long, and I put those arms that were in there before because I was having problems with these arms, but that was on a different helmet that I printed that was printed smaller than this. It was like a 97, this is 100, and yeah, I think we got it. Opens, and then boop. I said boop. Closes like it should. So we're good. Everything's good. So if you're messing around with arms and scaling and stuff, just know that the length of your servo arms may affect it opening or not. Because if you scale your helmet down, you might have to modify your servo arms to be a bit shorter. So that way it matches the helper arms and closes and opens properly. Just keep that in mind. So, lessons learned. I'm always learning something doing this stuff. And back to your regularly scheduled program, because that made absolutely no sense until the end. Alrighty, so basically we're just gonna hot glue this stuff in temporarily, just so that way I can play around with this and just see what the electronics should look like when it's basically ready to go and see how it works. First things first, I gotta cut off the diffusion material on these eyes. So just gotta peel back the material. I want to keep a little bit on there, basically where this gray part is here, and just do a nice little bit of a cut. Does not need to be exact whatsoever, just do that. And go ahead and do that to the other side as well. Now that we got that done on both of these, we're gonna make sure that we're putting in the right side of the eyes, because these guys have white dots in it that reflect the light outwards. So we want to make sure that the painted dots, we want to feel the texture, and if the texture of the dots is on this side, that's the part we want inside the helmet, because the light will basically bounce from there and then project that way. So you can do it the other way, but it will not be as bright and you may not be able to see the best. So just know it is kind of important to do that, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. We're basically just going to glue each side down. So good thing we're doing this, because you can see that the eye is way too big. It's like all the way to the other eye. So we're gonna have to trim some off the side of this. So we're just gonna eyeball it and take about that much off. There we go. And now you can see it fits in there basically how it should. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on the other eye as well. Let's go ahead and place these guys in here. Place them there. And we're just going to do some dabs of hot glue, and I am going to have to hold it in here for a little bit. Be very conservative about this, because you don't want to use a whole lot of hot glue. It'll make it a lot harder to remove it, and you might get it in the middle of the eye, which might ruin it. So don't do that. Just get it on the very sides here. And we're just gonna hold that and wait for that to dry, and then we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Probably be easier to see what I did there, because it was leaning against a thing, but you kind of get the point. All right, so now I'm gonna kind of glue the chin switch in here. So how this switch is gonna sit in here is that it's gonna sit at this nice little angle here, right inside here where my chin sits, and it's gonna kind of sit like that, so that way I can hit it very easily at like wherever my chin is positioned. So I'm just gonna slap that in there, put a little bit of hot glue in there, and then I think that's good enough for getting this all tested out. And now that we have everything together inside the helmet, and that we're going to pretend that it didn't take me 3 months in August, actually no, it's September now, to film the last part of the video. So let's plug in our big old power bank, because, you know, Neopixel needs more power, like I said earlier, haha. And let's plug it in, and it takes a second for the boot process, so it'll take 1 second here. There it goes. It works. So, funny thing here, so the Neopixel actually broke because, you know how I mentioned earlier in the video, I kind of messed some things up when I was doing the wiring on that, because that was the first time I was soldering directly to a actual like board. Well, I did botch it, and the light just stopped working. I couldn't get it to work. I tried resoldering it. It just wouldn't work. So that drained like 40 bucks out of my bank account to get a new one. So basically what I did to break it is that I kind of like shoved the soldering iron onto the pad and I way overheated it and I didn't get it to adhere. Well, I didn't get the solder and wire to adhere, so that's what caused that. What I did differently on this guy, and it's a different board actually, they upgraded it and it's more like a solid board, is that I had to connect it to the board this time, period. There was no other wires attached to it. So I did what I showed you when I was soldering the other wires together. So I put some on the tip of the soldering iron, that's called tinning, and then I put a little bit of solder to the surface I was adhering to, which was like the little metal hole area thing. It was like a hole that the wire goes through and it connects to the board. I put a little bit there and then I heat it up a little bit. I put the wire through and voila, it's cool, and I've just hot glued it to insulate it. So yeah, everything's working now. Helmet works beautifully, as you could see. So yeah, beautiful. And I did try just having the faceplate itself only open, and I detached the chin and I just glued it to the jaw. Yeah, that didn't work. That caused the faceplate to catch and wouldn't open. I couldn't get it to do the thing. So the beak is gonna have to stay on the faceplate like the Hot Toy, which I'm just concerned about how heavy the faceplate is. Yeah, that's my only concern, but it should be okay, I hope. But yeah, after this stage, you'd be going to sanding and painting your helmet because everything's good to go. You just need to detach everything, which I forgot to bring in the room, so give me a moment. So the easiest and most safe way to remove all the hot glue that I put in there, this is why I said to be very minimal and conservative about like how much you put in there, is to use some at least 70% isopropyl alcohol. Well, okay, well, it's on manual focus, not gonna focus on all that, but yeah, you get the point. You get this like literally anywhere. And so anything at 70% or over works perfectly. You just pour a little bit into wherever you have hot glue, and it should just pull right up, no problem. I got taught this by Crayon Shark from Crashworks. It was a pretty awesome tip. And it's also electronics friendly, so because it evaporates right away, it doesn't hurt your electronics. So this stuff is fantastic. Just get this, please, when you're working with hot glue and plastic and electronics. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that whenever I get ready to sand and paint the suit, which is coming here soon because it's the beginning of September and New York Comic Con is next month. Oh God. This is what I get for crunching projects. Everything should be good to go. I did actually just finish the legs today as filming the video, well, the assembly of them, so I'm pretty much in the home stretch and ready to sand and paint this guy. So very excited about that. And so that's pretty much it for all the electronics on the suit, other than the repulsors, which is going to get its own dedicated video where I show you that you can make your own repulsors for super cheap and super easy and only get it done in probably like 30 minutes to an hour. You could put this stuff together. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, make sure you subscribe for that, as well as more videos on me building the Mark 40, other projects, cosplay reviews, that kind of stuff, because lots of stuff is being worked on other than this guy, probably. I have future plans. But yeah, leave a like on this video. Tell me if I did anything wrong. Give me feedback. Tell me what, so that way if I did anything wrong, I can learn from the future, because even though I've already motorized like 2 helmets before this guy, I'm still learning and getting better at it. So you can clearly see I'm still making mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes like me, because that's the best way to learn. So yeah, any feedback would be appreciated. And if you guys liked the video, tell me down in the comments below what you liked about it, and if you learned anything, that'll be pretty cool. And just make sure you check out Polymaker, Wireframe, Levy 3D, Dio 3D, and also Crashworks for the board and everything. So that way you can support all the people who have made this stuff possible for me to show you guys. And yeah, with everything being said, I think that's the end of this ungodly long video. I hope I never have to make a video like this again. That's probably a lie. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, turn on notifications for any future uploads, and follow all my socials down below, like my Instagram where I post my cosplay pictures. I have 2 Instagram accounts now. Kira Creates Cosplay for my cosplay and Kira Creates for my more build stuff. Follow those, and all that's in the description. So until next time, where I light up your house like a Christmas tree, so that way I can more easily see where your mother is in the house. That way we could go on a dinner date. I don't know. Okay, have a great day. Touch grass.